Clear to engage. Time on target. 5 mics. Out.
Gotta wait for the countdown, Brian. Gotta wait for the countdown.
I think it's kind of interesting. Dogs are people's best friends, man. I mean, it sucks when you lose them or you have to put them down, but I just love having dogs in my life because they're just kind of fun if you go for a walk. And my 2 border collies, they've been around since my boys got them when they were super little, and their dad, was around before that. So it's pretty much in our family, like 15 years, the same lineage of dogs. So it's a bummer when you lose a dog, but it all comes to an end.
Yep, it's true. And it's tough because...
What do you think, Ryan?
It's tough because dogs live about, let's just say the average person, I don't know what the average lifespan is of a human. Let's just say it's 80 years. Dogs are only living about a tenth of that, right? Most of them, maybe you get 15 years out of 10 to 15. So you're going to go through 2, 3, 4 dogs if you have dogs your entire life. So you have that point where you have to let go, or you have to, miss them or put them down. So you do that 2 or 3 or 4 times. That's pretty tough. And especially if, they're just like a family member, right? That's a challenge. And so this is our first time going through it with our dog, who we had a situation and he had to be put down. And so, that was hard for the kids. And, but I also want to teach them what's real. I don't want to sugarcoat it too much for them. They need to know that like life is short, and that they, can get invested and should get invested in their animals, and then learn how to deal with the loss of that. Because I think that teaches them something about life and how you're in life, you are going to lose eventually at some point, people that you love and are very close to. And so you have to learn how to handle those things. And I think animals is a good way to teach the kids, both with like our cow, which we told them was raised for meat, but obviously it's still an animal and you still personify it. And they were smart enough not to name it. If they had named the cow, that always makes it a little bit worse, but you have to learn how to deal with those things. And I think that pets is a good way.
I would agree. I think, hey, what else is, who else is trying to get in there? Who's not using a dog? Any of these governor candidates. Maybe they should have a dog, try to appeal to everybody who's had dogs. And I don't really see that anymore. It used to be a big thing in political campaigns. Don't you remember, like back in the day, there was always like the dog in the picture. It was usually a lab or like a golden retriever or a lab or something. Well, I was looking at it and I saw a bunch of chatter online about the governor candidates, and a bunch of people were complaining that there's too many people running, and we'll go through who's running because that's kind of the purpose of this episode, because, the Republican primary is about the only thing that is worthwhile to talk about in regards to politics right now in Oregon. But last election cycle in 22, there was like 36 governor candidates. So from the Democrats to the Republicans, there was a lot in 2022. So really, it's not abnormal to have a lot of people vie for governor, because, once it takes a healthy amount of ego to run for governor, it takes a healthy amount of, belief in yourself that you think you're the right person. So you need an ego to run for governor. There's no doubt, but you also need an infrastructure. You need money. You need all of the things to make people even know who the hell you are. Because if you're one of 24 Republicans running in a primary that isn't named the top 4 or 5 that are in that primary are spending money, you basically are taking 2 or 3% of the vote, which then is how Christine Drazen wins with 22% of the vote in 2022, because she spent the most. And Bob Tierney coming in second, then Stan Polian, Bridget Barton, Bud Pierce all the way. Actually, I think Bud might have spent more, but he stopped spending near the end of that. And then you had your grassroots candidates, which is like Mark Thielman, Kerry McQuiston, Bill Sizemore, and then you have basically the rest of the losers, which were all about 1%. So this election cycle, from what I can see now, you have who's filed. We have Daniel Bethel, Christine Drazen, Kyle Dyke, I think is how you say his name. Patrick Kopke Hills, David Medina, Robert Newman, Brad Peters, Matthew Pyatt, Paul Romero, D'Angelo Leroy Turner, Martin Ward, and Tim Euchre. And then you have potential coming into the race, the ones that everybody keeps talking about. Ed Deal coming off the gas tax. And then, of course, everybody's wondering if Chris Dudley runs, who, of course, ran in 2010 and came the closest of any Republican of winning since we actually had a Republican in the race.
You know, somebody should run a tracker of candidates for all these races and then like keep them updated. I think that's a great idea that somebody should do. I'm thinking about doing it. I never done it before, except I have, and I should have all these guys on the list, and I need to update it. But listen, they're coming fast and furious, and that's the thing. I think the interesting ones are obviously the most recent ones, and I want to start with David Medina because I think he's an interesting guy. He has a Oregon Freedom Media Group, OFA, I think is what it's called. I do not remember what it stands for. But he's like an online media guy, doing his podcast, doing Oregon-related media. I think having some success with that. I see him all the time. I see clips and things like that. It's very well produced, right? So I think that there's a benefit. There are some downsides. I think his name ID is probably still pretty low. I don't think he's ever run for office before, and he may have visited the Capitol on a controversial day. And so there's the potential for some positive, some negative there from him. So I'm interested to see kind of what his reasoning is for running, because we obviously have some candidates with more experience. Is he running outsider? I mean, a lot of Republicans are doing this thing now where they want to become media personalities, and then they take that media personality and turn it into running for a candidate, right? That is a way to approach running for office, going all the way back to Tom McCall, right? He was a broadcaster, sure. I think. So that's a known way that you can sort of build a reputation, build a following, run for office, right? Another person like people who might be familiar with like a Rick Dancer, right? Kind of doing the same thing. So, or maybe he did it reverse. He might have run and then started a show. I don't remember. But anyway, that's a valid strategy. It remains to see how successful it will be. But if you're well known enough, you can turn it into, Ronald Reagan doing radio addresses and then running for governor and president. Like that's his potential. So it'll be interesting to see how his campaign develops. His logo has the box, the Trump box with the stars in it, right? He's right on the nose for where he thinks the primary electorate is. And then there's the one that I don't think most people are necessarily expecting, which is Ed Deal. Now he got involved in the no tax effort, right? And so it was him and Bruce Starr, Jason Williams, and then they had some pretty key folks helping them organize all these volunteers to collect the signatures. And I mean, I think that is obviously huge effort again, and not trying to take away from that. But I do think there's the potential to misread what that was. Okay. They went and gathered all these signatures. That's good, valuable data, but that data is only data of people who don't like taxes. Okay, that isn't data that tells us of people who are guaranteed to vote Republican in 2026. Not even close. A lot of those signatures were gathered in red counties by Republican PCPs who went to core areas where you could get good signatures. And also if you're going to sign a signature gathering effort on taxes, you're more predisposed to be anti-tax already, not like you're converted to anti-tax by signing the measure. Okay. So a lot of it was just identifying people where they already stood. Again, valuable data. That data is not enough to get you elected governor. You got to have a strategy. You got to have the right candidate. You got to have money. And I think those are questions that I would ask about Deal running. And is he the right candidate? Can he raise money? Because he's run 2 cycles in a very red district. He hasn't had to run a super ultra competitive race, I don't think, because before in the Canyon, when there was that hard primary, that was before redistricting, that was the Jamie Kate race. So he didn't run in the hard primary, if I remember right. I think he had a bit of an easier time his first run, and then not really any opposition his second term. So that's where it's like he's not as battle tested as somebody like Drazen, and I think that's a question.
Two very valid points. One, the Medina stuff, and here's the thing I see with the two of them, Medina and Ed Deal, they're both kind of in that grassroots lane. I mean, Ed crosses over into a little bit of the Drazen lane, clearly, because he's a state representative, right? So he has a little bit of that lane as well. I don't see how Medina, I don't even know if he makes money doing what he does with this media thing. I mean, I don't know. He gets 300 or 400 people that like his radio show when he does it or something. I don't know what that translates into for his revenue. I don't know if the guy makes any money. I don't really know. He's little, he's kind of in that younger kind of group that is out there trying the next Shirley kind of stuff, right? He's trying to do things like that, which is great. We need that sort of stuff. And maybe he lends a different voice to the primary, which is interesting, but there's on no planet does he beat Tina Kotek, at all. And then with Ed, I think you're right. Ed I think he's got a good shot to translate what he did in the gas tax into a primary win. But does that translate into a general election win? I think those two questions are wholly separate questions, in and of themselves. And I think the real loser in all of this, to be honest with you, is kind of Drazen. I think that Ed kind of comes in and kind of gives her a little bit of a flat tire. Because Drazen wasn't really involved in the gas tax stuff at all.
That's a good transportation pun, Brian. Good work there. Flat tire. Nice. That's good stuff.
I think you're just supposed to laugh, Eric. That's where I need that laugh track. I need that laugh track again. I think there's and Danielle Bethel, I think she's been quietly just moving through the process. I don't see anything that tells me she's breaking through. So that's probably a problem for me in that with her stuff. But, she's also going kind of more traditional route, right? You were talking about the traditional route versus untraditional route through the media. I mean, Bethel's never really done media, right? So hers is always county commission level stuff. She's blocking and tackling. She's policy wonk, all those sort of things that are, you want a governor candidate to have those chops to be able to talk intelligently about any and every issue, which I think there's, 3 or 4 of them that can at this point. And then you got the rest. The weird part is so let's say you get, 500,000 Republicans to vote, maybe. I don't even think we'll get that many. You start looking into that realm of, man, you just need about 20% to win this primary again.
Right.
Which is pretty wild because then 80% of the base voted against you.
Yes. And I don't necessarily think that's a negative. Obviously, primaries are much more about who's your favorite, right? In a lot of these situations, you can pretty much pick any flavor of Republican that's out there. And a lot of people, everybody's going to ask me, because I'm sure everybody's asking you, Brian, is Chris Dudley running? And I will tell you, I still have one piece of evidence I'm holding to. And that is, he is still a keynote speaker at the Western Liberty Network event, which I will hold is not something you're going to do if you're not running for governor. It doesn't really make sense. Reagan dinner is fun. Anybody would speak at Reagan dinner and have fun with it, and it's a room, but he's still speaking at Western Liberty Network, and he is doing that because he's running for governor. I firmly believe. So I'm holding to it. Maybe he doesn't declare. I'm holding that he's just getting his team ready, getting things ready. And honestly, for him, and you kind of occupy the less conservative lane of the party, keep waiting. Let more and more conservatives run and split that vote, baby.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think you're right. I think he's running. I think that knowing that Ed's got his big announcement coming up on tomorrow, Wednesday, right? So he's, quote unquote, it'd be funny if Ed comes out and actually says, I'm not running. I'm going to do this big hoopla, and then I'm not running.
I'm running for re-election. That would be the funniest thing of all time.
Yeah, what not? I mean, sure. Actually, and I was wrong. Only 380,000 Republicans even voted in 22. So now you're splitting hairs with, and Christine won with, I mean, look at this. She won with 85. She only got 85,000 votes.
I was gonna say it's going to be like 80,000. Yeah. Wow. So I mean, you can do that, and you can find a lane of people and win that primary.
Yeah, totally. And I think that what you'll see is knowing that you'll see Christine Drazen do, TV because she loves to be on TV. So she'll run a bunch of TV ads, and that's always her go-to. And then Ed will go to the grassroots and social media and that sort of stuff and spend all of his time there. I would assume, I don't know what Daniel Bethel does. I don't know if she has a media lane per se. So that's going to be a problem for her because I don't know how she reaches those voters. All of her county commissioner friends, she hasn't gotten near the number of endorsements that she was probably expecting that she thought she would get. So I think that's a problem for her. Medina's probably going to do the online thing too with Ed. So, because I don't know, unless somebody he's got in his pocket cuts him a check for $500,000, I don't know how else he gets his name out there.
Right.
And then Dudley, right? Dudley's, like you said, he's kind of the wild card. I think if he comes into this being the only one that is even outwardly said that he's pro-choice, that's a big defining difference in a primary.
It is. I don't think he'll run on that, but people will be aware of it.
Yeah. I wonder what Right to Life does with that. Like, do they attack Dudley because they don't want to move him forward because he's outwardly pro-choice? I mean, he's not running on it, but he has said it.
Oh, 100%. And he's sticking with it. I don't think that there's any indication that he has adjusted his position on that issue. I think it's going to be the same as it was in 2010.
Yeah, because I think he's just looking at the general. I don't think he's just saying you have to be pro-choice to be Tina. That's a calculus he's making, right? That you have to be pro-choice to win a general election against Tina. Now, can he get through with the primary with that calculus?
We're not sure. It's been a while since it happened because even with like Bueller, he didn't really get a real challenge on that front. Had he gotten a real solid, like Drazen runs against Bueller, Drazen wins the primary because she's more conservative on a couple of those key issues than he is, right? And so he was the one that got the free pass. Dudley isn't going to get a free pass, really.
No. Yeah, and I think you're right. He probably did look at the 2018 one, and Bueller did, but Bueller didn't have any. He had no challengers, so
right.
And clearly isn't a Republican. It's
not anymore. Turns out some of these guys who you think, I'm not even sure you're a Republican, they just reveal it later on. Yeah, Charlie Conrad, I'm not actually a Republican, who's, by the way, running as an independent. So, and that's my favorite, is when these guys declare I'm running as an independent, because it's automatically like, I am letting you know right now I've already lost the race. That's what you're doing. When you announce as an independent for an election, you're just announcing you've already lost.
They make the calculus when they run as independents because they see the non-affiliated voters, and they see the number, which is always pretty big in these districts. And they just they make that assumption that those people self-identify as independents. And they don't. They just, for some reason or another, haven't registered R&D. And it's clear in districts that vote pretty Republican, and I believe in that district, it's about a 60-40, basically, Republican win in a general election. So that tells me that most of those non-affiliated voters, or at least, a predominant number of them, are going to vote Republican. So they're just not registered as an R for some reason or another. They don't think this is the Betsy Johnson calculus that she completely missed, that you and we railed on, that there's no way that she made that calculus that, there's 1 million non-affiliated voters, in the state, and that means they want an independent candidate. No, actually, it doesn't mean that. And she proved our point, because you and I are over-under with 9%, and we were almost spot on that one.
Yeah. No. And I also think, to that point, people think non-affiliated voters are swing. some of them are the nuttiest voters you have ever met. Like, they're like, well, Republicans don't believe that we should dissolve the government and end all taxes, so I won't be a Republican. Like, that's the one side. And then the Democrats are like, well, President Biden didn't come out and say we need to kill all of the Jews, so I can't be a Democrat. Like, that's the type of voter. Also, yes, there are some swing voters in there, but there's also some of the nuttiest voters you have ever met in your life that are registered non-affiliated, because they don't. All it means is I don't agree with the two major parties. That's all it means. That can mean many different things, and so people go in there and be like, "Oh, all these people, they're so independent. They don't want." A lot of these people don't want to be participants, and that's why when they run these ballot measures that go, "Oh, these people, they desperately wish they could be part of the primaries." No, most of these people know if they wanted to vote in a partisan primary, they just change their voter registration. Yeah. It's not rocket science. They're not there out there being non-affiliated and then being like, why can't I vote in the primary? They know how to do it. They're not stupid. They just don't want to.
Yep.
That's why these ballot measures that change the system for primaries always fail, because it doesn't make sense to have a system where everybody else.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's pretty crazy and wild with the primary system, because you're right. And non-affiliated voters, for the most part, they're non-participants for a reason, right? They just don't want to partake in the process. They don't want to do the primary stuff. They're busy living their lives, right? They're got a job, they got other things they're doing. They don't really care, and they get forced to care every few years. Usually in the general election, they're forced to care, and then they show up and vote the way they want to vote.
Exactly. So anyway, I mean, I think I don't know if we're quite there, but we're coming up on our time limit, our self-imposed time limit. Is there anything else that is relevant for folks to cover as we do this quick hit, getting everybody updated on the gubernatorial prospects for Republicans?
Well, the one thing, I just want to touch on one thing, and there's a weird saying in the politics, is I've found it more and more, is the feelings queue, where there's so many people in this world in which, we live, right? And we work in every single day, that need to be heard. And it's becoming to the point to where it's so freaking annoying that people have this self idea that their feelings are more important than my feelings, or your feelings are more important than the other person's feelings, right? And so I'm seeing this time and time again. So it's moving like this idea that, like, with the protests in Minnesota, you're seeing it nationally and we're seeing it locally. Like this concept that because I feel this way, I'm right. And I see this in the building all the time with stuff, and it's just so freaking annoying that you somehow feel you're owed a spot, in the Republican primary. They got a couple people that are crying because they get a challenger in the primary. I'm so just fed up with the BS of,
and that goes to even just the legislative process. You aren't owed your bill because some constituent came to you and had this horrible thing happen. You have to earn it. You want to pass a bill, you want to get an executive order, you want to get an agency to change their rules. Earn it. Just go earn it. Go make the case. Go beat the crap out of them in the press. Do whatever needs to be done to get the change, but you have to earn it. You got to earn your spot in the legislature. You got to earn your spot in the committee. You got to earn your spot. Yeah. Oh, the speaker isn't very nice to me. The Senate president isn't nice to me. Well, it's probably because you're being a pill. It's probably because you didn't earn it.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, or you throw a temper tantrum in a committee, and then the president removes you off that committee, and then you're pissed at the president. Wait, sorry, Mark Meek. Sorry, Mark Meek.
Listen, that was all predictable, and I think I would guess. I know Senator Meek. You know Senator Meek. That was probably calculated. Yeah. He probably knew, hey, if I send the letter saying the Senate president sucks, he might do something about that. You got to think it through. And I always respect these guys who are like, hey, stuff happens and I made a choice. We all make choices, and choices have consequences. Know that your choices have consequences. Stop pretending that it's everybody else's job to protect you from those consequences. I'm going to go run to the Senate, to the Republican leader and tell them I got taken off a committee and that was mean. And it's the Senate Republican leader is going to tell you, yeah, I'll go meet with the president and I'll tell them they're a bad person, but I can't do anything for you. Sorry. Like that's all that can be done. Take responsibility for your actions. If your persona and the thing you're going to do is I'm going to be a fighter and don't be surprised when you get punched once in a while then. I mean, goodness.
You're making my whole, and this is both sides of the aisle. This is not a D and an R thing. This is,
100%.
This is both sides of the aisle. It's even like lobbyists that get upset if we say something or something, they don't get their bit right
which, by the way, I have been getting so much texting about what the replicator in Star Trek. Okay, people were upset that I could not remember what it was called. Apparently, it was a replicator, and that's the device that you can create whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, good reach back. Yeah, you and I both, we couldn't remember that. I like Star Trek, but I'm with you. I'm a little bit more of a Star Wars guy.
It was just cooler. I think Star Trek, there's a certain fandom, and I think a lot of the old Star Trek is really good. Some of the new stuff might be a bit questionable, but nothing new is any good. The new Star Wars is also mostly bad. So I get that. And then the teleporter, that's the other one. The teleporter is the thing that moves you between places.
I would like a teleporter. That would be cool.
So that quick bit of follow-up. Yes, we heard you. Yes, we understand. I'm sorry that we are not as smart about Star Trek. Maybe I'll watch I'll make all the Star Trek people mad. Maybe I'll watch one of the J.J. Abrams movies. The Star Trek fanboys don't love everything that J.J. Abrams did with Star Trek, which is funny because when J.J. Abrams made Star Wars, same problem. So anyway, maybe it's J.J. Abrams.
One on that one. I got a good Star Trek reference here for you.
Okay.
So is the Prime Directive a Democrat policy or Republican policy?
That's a good question.
Right?
Let me Google what the Prime Directive is. Hold on.
So I think if I get it right, I think the Prime Directive is like basically you're not supposed to interfere with other planets that don't have intergalactic capabilities, right? I think, or they don't have warp drive.
That's right.
Right? No,
that's
they haven't achieved warp drive status.
You show up with all your not your Republican, but all your galactic fanciness, and they're still primitive people, basically, is the idea. Right?
Yeah. And so you're not supposed to intervene, right, in the process of the world, which must be, I think, what that the comet is that's outside Earth right now, right? That has life on it that is watching us. So they're like, those poor little souls down on Earth, they don't have warp drive yet, so we can't.
There's
intervene.
A green dot on Jupiter. I saw that on Twitter. So obviously there's life.
I don't know.
I would say, here's what I'll say. Here's my answer. If the Prime Directive is to not interfere with planets that don't have warp drive capability, then that is currently a Democratic directive, because if you show up, that's colonialism. And that's a Republican value right now because Trump wants to take Greenland and we've got Venezuela. We're slowly expanding our risk map. So right now it's a Democrat directive is what I would say because it's anti-colonialist. How's that, Brian?
There you go. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I was thinking maybe a little libertarian Republican, just because
very isolationist libertarian. There's crossover between those two things.
A little bit, yeah. But I think
absolutely.
You're right. Probably leans a little dim in today's Democratic politics.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Well, on that
exactly
note,
right.
Good catching up with you. Star Trek fans, we still love you. But I'm an Obi-Wan Kenobi guy, so that's how I live. That's how I roll.
I think there was something. I think the Star Wars fans are geeks and the Star Trek fans are nerds. Or maybe it's the other way around. I can't remember. But either way, we can all get along. We can all find if that's the two political parties for nerds and geeks. It's Star Wars and Star Trek. You're one or the other. Really, it's hard to be both. It's hard to be both.
I was a Dungeons and Dragons guy. What does that make me? Like full geeky nerd? I'm trying to wonder.
The movie with Chris Pine is very, very funny. I thought that was good. That's my first exposure to Dungeons and Dragons, and I still haven't watched Stranger Things, so everybody can yell at me now about not having watched Stranger Things. Listen, I tried to start it. When you start a show and you're like, I'm not going to like this, that's what happened. I started the first episode, and I'm like, I am not going to enjoy this, and so I just didn't watch it. I know roughly what goes on because it's in the culture, but like, I just don't care.
Yeah, it was good. I don't think it was great as everybody thought it was. I enjoyed this last season. I think it was a pretty good capper to the whole thing, but it got a little wonky and kind of off the rails in the beginning seasons. But the first season's good, last season's good, and it was it's good. It's fun watching TV. I love all the different things, and what's great about it is they're going back and harking and grabbing all of these things that they can, because there's so much money in like TV production, because you got so many networks clamoring for content. So it's great. Pretty soon we're going to sell our podcast to somebody.
Yes, we're actually part of the Netflix Warner Brothers merger. Turns out we're
a sticking point right now, Reagan, because we're holding out.
Yeah, we kind of think Paramount would be better for us. I think that's what we're thinking. So anyway, good talking to you, Brian.
Paramount.
That's right. All right.
Catch up with you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye.